I will give now the words to Michael. Please feel free to go ahead.
Yeah, thank you also everyone for joining this session. I'm really excited to be joined by three pioneers from the crypto landscape here in Croatia. And yeah, I think I want to start off by setting the frame that I think Bitcoin has evolved a lot. I think, Zoran, you have a very, very strong background and expertise from the very early days. So I'm curious to hear your perspectives from the early days in mining. Ivana, with a strong background also in the banking and finance sector, investing, and Nikola being also one of the earliest pioneers here in Croatia, building a payments processor and brokerage and exchange and many other things. Also Money Motion, which is a fantastic event also that I hope to join next year. But yeah, maybe Zoran, you can start off from your perspective, the early days in Bitcoin, to just pick us up from when you got into Bitcoin, what got you hooked, and share a little bit of your kind of story about Bitcoin from the very early days.
Okay. Is this working? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Our journey into Bitcoin started in 2011 or something like that. It was more like a chance that appeared out of nowhere. And we were involved in mining, primarily mining, and distribution of mined coins. In the early days, it was more like a play. It was not serious, it was not institutionalized, it was not industrialized. It was all more or less trial and error. So we've been involved in mining almost all proof of work coins, not just Bitcoin. We have witnessed the Ethereum, rising the Ethereum, and then the Zcash and all other coins as well. At some point, our operations were actually the largest on the planet. We were serving several million customers on a daily basis. It was a challenge at that point, actually, because the networks were still young, and it was not like it is today, let's say it like this. We had a lot of issues also running those networks, because at some point we were running 28 or 29 different currencies at the same time, so the infrastructure was quite large. And of course, sometimes they do work, sometimes they don't. But at the end, the customers always actually expect their coins regularly to be paid out. So we actually seen a lot of these things from like homegrown mining operations to large-scale operations like hundreds or 200s, even 500 megawatts, which was like, I don't know, 200,000 miners at the same time. So running at different locations on the planet. It was interesting because back then, the most important part was actually finding cheap electricity. So finding the energy that is available, since it's 24/7 operations, so there are no pauses in that process. We actually managed to do so. Looking backwards now, for us, it was not serious, you know, because now when you look at it from this point of view, it is a serious business. You have a lot of institutionalized and funds that are related to that, and it's completely different than it was back then. We had a lot of challenges that we had to overcome during that period, mostly engineering ones, because it was unknown to us, let's say like that.
Yeah, you also just mentioned Zcash. I think yes. Privacy and Zcash is also playing a bigger role now. Obviously, the Zcash price also went up a lot in recent weeks, so that always catches the attention and eyeballs of people. But you mentioned also everything is getting more serious. I think we can also see that from the event here. I mentioned that yesterday in the opening, like when we started Cosmoverse, it was a grassroots developer event, and now we have central banks here, we have institutions, Bosch and Revolut, and they want to be on stage. They want to have this public dialogue. They want to learn and connect. And we also have more serious players joining and also allocating capital, like Ivana. So maybe you can share from your perspective, how do you view the role of Bitcoin, and how do you view and strategize also with InterCapital on how to be positioned.
Okay. Well, for us, introduction of ETF was a game changer because it made it possible for us to start investing or allocating part of the portfolio, client's portfolio, to Bitcoin. And then it was up to the decision if and up to what extent to include it into diversified portfolio. So it is always, of course, the question of risk-reward. So if this is good enough. And then okay, we all know the story. If you go back to what Bitcoin is and how it functions, we all know it has a limited supply. So basically, if demand goes up, then the price goes up, and demand goes up if the belief that it will become mainstream, it will become digital gold and store of value materializes, then you have more people joining, more people going. So it is about this belief, and if this belief is more spread across the population, then we come a little bit more closer to the end game. But the risk part is, okay, there is a risk that it will not happen, that it will not be widely adopted. So of course, we don't know for sure, and then how to position the portfolio. From our perspective, as the probability is basically going up constantly, it's on the path to become really mainstream in terms of really, really, really big numbers. Because if you look at its market capitalization right now, it's still relatively small. It's like 15 times smaller than market capitalization of the gold. It's like, if you compare it to NVIDIA, NVIDIA is bigger than the market capitalization of Bitcoin. So it still has to grow. But as long as the probability of it reaching its ultimate goal, and this is to become the store of value, which means it has to become much less volatile, this probability makes it really attractive. Why? Because then it has a potential to outperform other asset classes. And if this is a part of classic diversified portfolio, it has a potential to deliver returns which will enhance the total return. So basically, it became interesting for all the big players. In the region, we are the first one, but if you look at the BlackRock, Fidelity, JP Morgan, everyone started talking about it, and I would say relatively shy. So we mostly hear about 1 to 2% allocation, some of them going up to 5%. We were even more bold in this respect, so we basically made portfolios that include up to 8% of Bitcoin in that portfolio, which is for traditional asset manager, and the competition
like
quite...
All in. It's like going all in.
Yeah.
Basically.
Okay. Yeah.
And Nikola, I think you started Electrocoin in 2013, right?
14.
14. Yeah. So over a decade ago.
Yeah.
A very long time. I mean, Zoran mentioned 2011. Yeah. I'm with true early adopters here. From your perspective, how do you view the adoption level of Bitcoin? I mean, we speak about allocating capital into Bitcoin, obviously, since the ETFs were approved, I think it was January 2024 in the US. That was a big stamp of approval, I would say, for global allocators to put money into Bitcoin. But what about like the merchant adoption? How do you view that over the past decade to now? Was there anything that stood out? And what do you view the biggest bottlenecks today to scale that?
I have maybe a bit of an unorthodox perspective, because if you ask me about Bitcoin adoption, then I'm thinking about Bitcoin white paper and the idea of building a parallel financial or at least payment system. And in this regard, I see Bitcoin adoption diminishing. Because back in 2013, I started doing trades on local Bitcoins, you know, basically being black market for FX or whatever, for moving money, you know. I had clients from all over the place doing just, you know, remittances, moving money, or paying for their weed or whatever, you know. And they were using Bitcoin, nothing else. Bitcoin was 100% of volumes back then. As we progress through time, there is less and less of adoption of Bitcoin because people are moving to stablecoins or to Ethereum or whatever. You know, when we started our payment processor in 2018, 90% of transactions were Bitcoin. Now, on our payment processor, less than 30% of transactions are Bitcoin. People are mostly using stablecoins for payment. So I think this is going to progress into the future because for instance, people like Ivana, she's not doing payments, she's doing investment. And this is the main interest of people now entering Bitcoin. So if we are talking about Bitcoin adoption, you know, in mainstream terms, as people adopting it into their investment portfolio, then of course there's a bright future in front of us. Then it's going to explode. It's exploding right now. More and more people are onboarded into Bitcoin as an investment vehicle. But if we are, you know, reading the first few sentences of the Bitcoin white paper, in that case, Bitcoin adoption is basically going to zero because nobody really is going to use Bitcoin as an alternative payments network. That being said, the vision of Satoshi was to build a network that will be resilient in case of a catastrophic societal collapse. In case all of the American banks fall apart, we need a payment network. And we built it. We have it right now. It's not exactly Bitcoin, but there's a whole ecosystem, and now if the Wall Street falls apart, if there's a world war, there is a payment network to be used, probably not Bitcoin, but you know, decentralized stablecoins and stuff like that. So in a way, I would say that the adoption of Bitcoin is going to zero, but the adoption of the vision of Bitcoin is basically exploding right now.
When I first read the Bitcoin white paper, I think the thing that got me really hooked about why this is so big and innovative is that when I truly understood that, like, for the first time, we have a system that separates money from the government, from the state, right? And like you're saying, maybe here in Europe it's not that visible, but I used to live in Colombia for some time, and there that's a true issue, not only because of trust, but also because of inflation and a lot of other things. Venezuela is a big example, Argentina, which is where you also see adoption rates of self-custodial wallets and stable coins and cryptocurrencies in general is very, very high because people are basically forced into sovereign, non-custodial forms of money. And I think what Bitcoin presented in 2009, this blockchain concept for the first time, a breakthrough in that from this early cypherpunk movement that was basically a 2-3 decade long innovation, which I think, Zoran, and I want to ask you that with the early participation that you had in this, I mean, I hear from Nikola that when it comes to building this peer-to-peer electronic cash system, we're not fully on track with that anymore, probably. But I'm curious, Zoran, like your opinions from this early days cypherpunk movement and Bitcoin now in 2025, like, do you feel like we're still representing those values, or what's your view on that?
I believe that it's still there. It's slightly changed since the early days. Probably one of the parameters is the price, actually the exchange rate from Bitcoin to the fiat currencies, because it's kind of like huge nowadays. And even back then, we had a feeling that we were late. You know, like oh, there is someone, you know, that is here before us, and you know, we are kind of late. They are early adopters, okay? And from today's perspective, it's still actually very, very early, because every important technology that is younger than 10 or even 20 years is not considerable safe, especially for large investments and those big whales in the fiat world. So I think that one of the most important things is the longevity of the chain. Since the Bitcoin has the longest chain, actually the oldest chain that spans from 2009 onwards, we can actually look at that as a special ledger of spent energy, not really mined coins. Mined coins are just like based on some formula that when we look nowadays that like Satoshi actually spent like maybe 50 watts of energy for creating 50 Bitcoins. If we compare it to today, which is like hundreds of megawatts, actually to produce coins, it's very, very huge difference. From the engineering perspective, the most important is actually the measurement system. If something we can measure and safely store that particular piece of information, then we can do something about it. And from that perspective, I think that coin won't die. Maybe it won't be used for everyday transaction between you and me. But for large players like, I don't know, Bank of International Settlements and things like that, where they need like high level of security, Bitcoin is actually the best network for that. Okay, especially because we have so much hash power nowadays involved in Bitcoin network that is larger than all supercomputers on the planet together. So nobody actually has exclusive control over it, which is really important. And the second thing is that we tend to look Bitcoins as a monetary value. On one side, it's okay, because we have to transact, but it's important only because of paying the fees for the network, for the work. Which means that actually we can exchange transactions of only few hundred Satoshis, and actually showing that this transaction security is exactly the same as very large amounts. So the amount itself is irrelevant. Relevant is actually the amount of work that has been invested into producing the blocks and the security. That's why like this proof of work and stake, these things, okay, they're like this chicken and egg problem, you know, like what comes first? Of course, in this digital world, Satoshi started with proof of work, which is fine. And then after that, we got the digital version of proof of stake, okay? Like energy efficiency and all kinds of really nice things today. But obviously, like at the beginning, it was always actually proof of stake. Because you have to invest some money in buying miners, creating the infrastructure, paying the electricity and everything else, and then putting the machine to actually prove that work has been done, okay? So Bitcoin won't die. It will actually just go level up, and who knows where it ends, okay? And we are lucky because we have all sorts of Ford coins that have special applications, larger blocks, and all nice things that we've seen in the past as things that are like problematic for Bitcoin. The block size is still the same. You know, I remember the block wars, you know, when it was like, it's going to split the network, they want large blocks. And it turns out that it's actually not needed, okay? And 1 megabyte nowadays is a joke. Like every single machine, even the smallest ones, can be in synchronization with the Bitcoin network because the block size is 1 megabyte, okay? And looking from that perspective, the whole chain is, I don't know, maybe 700 gigabytes nowadays. I remember the days when we had the problems with that as well. Like the chain will be really large. We won't be able to sync the network, store all the blocks and everything. And like 10 years after, nobody's talking about it anymore. Like 1 terabyte of space is a joke. You have it on your mobile phone. So you can be actually completely synced from the day zero. So Bitcoin won't die. It will just change a little bit. And actually give the opportunity for all other crypto to thrive upon it.
Yeah, I mean, the title of this panel is also Bitcoin in motion. So while the underlying tech is not evolving as much, I think the outside perception around what Bitcoin is in full motion, and I think is changing a lot. And Ivana, you just mentioned most allocators put in 1 or 2% into Bitcoin. You went all in with 8%. But how is, in your view, this coexistence with what we spoke about this whole panel, right? This original early vision of Satoshi, the cypherpunk movement, separating money from state. Since a year and a half, I feel like that is now fully clashing or merging with the traditional financial sector. Like, how do you view that? Is that just coexisting in 2 different rails? Is that merging, or what is your thesis on that?
Yeah. Well, I must say that I was listening to what Nikola was also saying. From my perspective, I was always looking at Bitcoin's first utility to become a store of value in the digital gold. So this is the narrative. And then you have the payment system around it. And I was always actually challenging the payment around Bitcoin as being too expensive, too slow, too something. So the thing that the infrastructure is building around it, I think it's actually the way that it's supposed to be, you know. And the thing, okay, so Bitcoin as a store of value. As Zoran said, it's still young. We are still really early stage, and it's still super immature. This is why I said the probability of it becoming a digital gold and store of value, ultimate store of value, is rising. So if it goes more up, we will have bigger and bigger and bigger market capitalization. When we will not be at only $2.5 trillion, and this is really only $2.5 trillion, but when we will be talking about 30 or 50 or whatever, so when we will be able to compare it to gold, to American debt or something that big, then we may expect volatility to go down. You can move a stone, you can move even a huge stone if you try hard, but you cannot move the mountain. And then all the risks around it, for example, regulatory risks. China, 2021, banned mining, 50% down. If Bitcoin would be 50 times bigger than it was in 21, then China's ban would not be, it would be still significant, but not that significant. So my point is, it has a huge potential, it has risks to the downside. Why we allocate up to 8%, not more than that? Because we are asset manager. We are, our clients are not clients who are trading themselves, and we are not transaction executor. So if you come and then you want to buy, you can put 100% of your portfolio in Bitcoin, but this will be your decision. If you come to us, you become our client, and let's talk about it. Our clients are either clients who don't know or don't have time to make their own investment decisions and to trade, or those who want to do that, they do trade themselves, but they want to allocate part of the portfolio to put it on autopilot, not to be overly speculative, but to have some long-term diversified perspective. So, I don't know, for 20 years, financial goals. So I can have this here and I can trade here. And these portfolios, having, for example, 8% of Bitcoin, allow everyone to have part of the overperformance when the times are good, but downside risk is always limited, you know. And this is why 8%. Of course, you can build this portfolio which has 8%, and then you can go and buy, I don't know, 3 times or 5 times more Bitcoin if you want to participate more in it. But then it's a risk that you have to decide yourself. This is the thing. So, long story short, I think coexistence. And this is actually now legit asset class. So we are not talking about something, you know, on the black market or whatever. Institutions are coming in, governments are coming in, everyone are coming in.
How many in the audience listened yesterday to the panel with the European Central Bank? Hands up? Okay. Yeah, because I think there's definitely, and that's also why having these conversations publicly is very important, to also understand both sectors, public, private, and also the traditional financial system. And we talked about this a lot yesterday, and today in the afternoon we also have a stablecoin segment, which is also going to be touching on that. But I think there's definitely a lot of different world perspectives at some point, even like coming together. But I want to also, I have 2 more questions for you. One is specifically around the adoption here in Croatia. You all have your businesses and are based out of Croatia. So how do you view the role of Croatia, the adoption rates of Bitcoin, and maybe even like cryptocurrencies in general? Like, is there anything specific that stands out to you where you see this is where maybe your clients have a specific interest in, or did you see from the merchant side or from the software engineering? Is there anything that stands out to you, and where do you see Croatia being on this trajectory, maybe within Europe to start with, for when it comes to crypto and Bitcoin adoption?
Nikola, you?
Okay. Sure. So part to answer your question and part to get back to the colleagues that they mentioned right now. I was listening to them and I remember a few days ago a friend of mine forced me to watch a video from DTCC, the Depository and Trading and Clearance Company from the US, and they were having this workshop and showing and clicking on the screen and showing how you can tokenize stuff with a few clicks, and they have a branch in Japan, and it's midnight in New York, and they need liquidity in Japan, and they're sleeping in New York, and they just with few clicks tokenized and moved money from New York into Japan, and they were so amazed by this. These traditional finance people, like if this is some world miracle. And I remembered myself waking up at 4 a.m. in DeFi summer 2020 to witness the rebase of Amplefort, if anybody remembers those days. And I had liquidity on several exchanges, and in a few minutes I was moving it all around the world, you know, in 2020, and they are now talking about it as if it's some kind of world miracle. And I think this is going back to Zoran, we are just starting, you know. So we are working, to answer your question, we are working with a few banks now. There's 19 banks in Croatia, and 3 of them are right now working with us to allow crypto trading to their customers, to have a Revolut-style crypto trading module. We started that in last, let's say, 9 months, and it's progressing really fast. Of course, because of the regulation, markets in crypto assets, and so now banks can do that easily, but also because the mindset of the bankers is changing, because Revolut has it. So they have to start allowing adoption through their channels. So to answer your question, I see that the next wave, the last wave of adoption was ETFs. When InterCapital started offering it through their offering, basically. This is a completely new demographics. Now, after the banks allow Bitcoin trading in their mobile apps, that's hundreds of thousands of people in millions of people in Croatia that will get exposed. The next step, we already work with one bank on building a stablecoin wallet, because we started to talk to them about the crypto trading part, and you know, some workshops, writing on the whiteboard. Wait, but we can build a payment wallet in 6 months, which would take us 2 years on traditional rails. Oh wait, there's a good way to use existing crypto infrastructure to solve some of our problems. So that's the next step. That's one bank. What we still have 0 banks is realizing, listening to you guys, that Bitcoin, a good friend of mine from working in Croatian National Bank told me, in the end, stablecoins are bank money on some bank accounts. So if it starts falling apart, it's, you know, what's this crypto of yours? It's not usable if banks start falling apart. This is true for stablecoins, but not for Bitcoin. And I guess at some point, you know, moving from Revolut crypto trading to stablecoin wallet, at some point it might be that, you know, traditional bankers will realize, whoa, wait, we now have China, we have Russia, we have Iran, we have US decoupling from Eurozone. You know, if we use only stablecoins to do global settlement, maybe this is not the best idea. Maybe we should really move to Bitcoin. So yeah, maybe I have changed my mind from my previous answer. Maybe there is, you know, brewing a big push in adoption of Bitcoin. We'll see how it happens. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. Any thoughts from your, for Zoran?
Yeah, actually, a few days ago, I was looking into one research made by our regulators 2 years ago on financial literacy. It's OECD methodology, and among other things, it was giving a picture of how much people in Croatia invest, and it's quite low to begin with. It's been increasing quite intensively during the last 2 years, but let's see where we started from 2 years ago. Only 1% of people said that they were investing in equity. Only 1% said they were investing in bonds, but 3% said that they were investing in crypto. So basically, retail in Croatia is more leaned towards crypto than traditional investments. So this is quite interesting.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Zoran, final words from your side?
Well, I believe that we are in very nice time in the history to be alive, because we could have spent our lives, nothing special happened, you know. And actually everybody owning a little bit of crypto, it doesn't have to be Bitcoins as such, is actually a very good gateway for education. Because I have witnessed all kinds of things, from hacks to unsecure wallets to all kind of scams. And our primary goal is actually to save the people from all of that somehow, you know, to create some safe environment so people can learn, educate themselves, you know, in actually participating in the networks. And I think that I see the bright future, okay? Not just for Croatia, because as soon as you get internet and as soon as your wallet gets synced, you start to look at the exchange rate, you start to actually read about it, you follow some news, you talk about it, and I believe that this is actually a good way to go.
Thank you so much. You will hear more from Nikola in the afternoon in the stablecoin segment, and then tomorrow also the big closing with a fireside with Visa that is going to be here. And then you also hear more from Ivana later today in the enterprise segment about institutional money flowing on chain. And yeah, thank you so much for joining and everybody for listening. And now over to Rob. Thank you.